Greetings. Here I read out excerpts from books, movie scenes, poems, etc. that are living in my mind rent-free, hence the name of this channel. Afterward, I will add some brief comments regarding the excerpt and why I chose it. Today's excerpts, plural, are from the Silmarillion. Excerpt 1. And Fëanor grew swiftly, as if a secret fire were kindled within him. He was tall and fair of face and masterful, his eyes piercingly bright and his hair raven dark, in the pursuit of all his purposes eager and steadfast. Few ever change his courses by counsel, none by force. Excerpt 2. For Fëanor was driven by the fire of his own heart only, working ever swiftly and alone. And he asked the aid and sought the counsel of none that dwelt in Aman, great or small, save only and for a little while of Nerdanel the wise, his wife. But Aulë the Maker said, Be not hasty, we ask a thing greater than thou knowest. Let him have peace yet awhile. Fëanor spoke then, and cried bitterly, For the less even as for the greater there is some deed that he may accomplish but once only, and in that deed his heart shall rest. It may be that I can unlock my jewels, but never again shall I make their like, and if I must break them, I shall break my heart, and I shall be slain, first of all the eldad in Aman. And again there was silence, while Fëanor brooded in the dark. It seemed to him that he was beset in a ring of enemies, and the words of Melkor returned to him, saying that the Silmarils were not safe if the Valar would possess them. And is he not Valar as are they? Said his thought, and does he not understand their hearts? Yea, a thief shall reveal thieves. Then he cried aloud, This thing I will not do of free will. But if the Valar will constrain me, then shall I know indeed that Melkor is of their kindred. End of excerpt. Third excerpt. Second. Fourth excerpt. Their oath shall drive them, and yet betray them, and ever snatch away the very treasures that they have sworn to pursue. To evil end shall all things turn that they begin well, and by treason of kin unto kin, and the fear of treason, shall this come to pass. The dispossessed shall they forever be. Ye have spilled the blood of your kindred unrighteously, and have stained the land of Aman. For blood ye shall render blood, and beyond Aman you shall dwell in death's shadow. Slain ye may be, and slain ye shall be, by weapon and by torment and by grief. And those that endure in Middle-earth shall grow weary of the world as with a great burden, and shall wane, and become as shadows of regret before the younger race that cometh after. Then many quailed, but Fëanor hardened his heart, and said, We have sworn, and not lightly. This oath we will keep. We are threatened with many evils, and treason not least. But one thing is not said, that we shall suffer from cowardice, from cravens or the fear of cravens. Therefore I say that we will go on, and this doom I add. The deeds that we shall do shall be the matter of song until the last days. End of excerpt. Next excerpt, I've lost track of the number, unfortunately. And it was told to the Vanyar who held vigil with the Valar, that when the messengers declared to Manwë the answers of Fëanor to his heralds, Manwë wept and bowed his head. But at that last word of Fëanor, that at the least the Noldor should do deeds to live in song forever, he raised his head, as one that hears a voice far off, and he said, So shall it be. Dear bought the song shall be accounted, and yet shall be well bought, for the price could be no other. Thus, even before as Eru spoke before us, shall beauty not conceived be brought into air, and evil yet be good to have been. But Mandos said, and yet remain evil within Ea. To me shall Fëanor come soon. End of excerpt. Final excerpt. There Medros was in time healed, for the fire of light was hot within him, and his strength was of the ancient world, such as those possessed who were nurtured in Valinor. His body recovered from his torment and became hale, but the shadow of his pain was in his heart, and he lived to wield his sword with left hand more deadly than his right had been. End of all excerpts. So these lines are from the Silmarillion, and these have been my favorite. These have remained in my head for a long time. I first read the Silmarillion sometime around about 2018, and these lines stood out to me then, and they stand out to me now, though for different reasons. At that time, particularly the lines about, particularly the earlier lines, Fëanor grew swiftly as if a secret fire were kindled within him, blah 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 blah. In the pursuit of all his purposes, eager and steadfast, few ever change his courses by counsel, none by force, turned by the fire of his own heart only, walking ever swiftly and alone, blah blah blah. At that time, the lines produced a certain measure of, for lack of a better word, they did seem to light a fire within me, even though at the time I had zero comprehension about how deluded I was being, because at that period in my life I was lazy, undisciplined, fat. The list of things about my code of conduct during that time that do short. What does it say of his face? Tall and fair of face. No, not fair of face. Freaking hideous. The list of ways in which I was completely incongruent with those lines was something I was completely blind to. Let's put it that way. Fast forward to present day, and frankly, if I'm detaching myself, to quote Jocko, from the extreme amount of conservatism and pessimism that I've built up, I'm probably a bit closer to those lines than I was. I'm definitely closer to those lines, to the ideal in those lines, than I was when I first read them. And though I'm still very, very far away, to be very clear, I'm not as horrendously far as I was at that stage. But also the other thing is that the ideal has shifted. So these extracts, I've centered them around the characters of Fëanor, and the final extract is of his son, Medros. And to sort of highlight the character progression of Fëanor as quickly as I bloody can, Fëanor, the opening extracts are his youth, the latter extracts are the progression of the story, and then the last couple of extracts, their oath shall drive them and yet betray them and ever snatch away the very treasures that they have sworn to pursue, yada yada, are after Fëanor has killed his, for the first time in the story, killed his fellows. And when I say for the first time, I mean this is the first time that elves have been killed in the story. Fëanor is an elf, not a Harry Potter elf, a Lord of the Rings elf. They are completely different. But so anyways, point of briefly summarizing the story as I just did, is now I look at these earlier lines, the ones I was talking about for the first bit, grew swiftly, eyes piercingly bright and steadfast, yada yada yada, as though through a veil. And that line was to quote Harry Potter. And it isn't until the lines it seemed to him that he was beset in a ring of enemies, and the words of Melkor returned to him, saying that the Silmarils were not safe, that I can look at these lines as with clear eyes, so to speak. And I suspect the reason for that is, without delving into detail, the period immediately following 2018 to 2019, early 2019, was the equivalent of Fëanor's sin, so to speak. Fëanor killed his own kindred, and I in my own way. If we take the words loosely, without specifics, because I'm not going to go into specifics. I've made that mistake before. And I betrayed mine, roughly speaking, which is why the only lines that can pierce me sincerely, that have any capacity to impact my soul with full measure, follow from their oath shall drive them and yet betray them. And in terms of an ideal to which I can now strive, because every human being needs to strive for an ideal, the greatest that I can hope for is, we have sworn and not lightly. This oath we will keep. We are threatened with many evils and treason not least, but one thing is not said, that we shall suffer from cowardice, from cravens, or the fear of cravens. Therefore I say that we will go on, and this too I add, that the deeds we do shall be the matter of song until the last days. To be clear, I have not lived up to that either, but that is something for which I could strive in my present capacity. And perhaps someday in the future, well beyond the future that I can presently see, there shall come a time where the ideal to which I may strive is better encompassed by that final extract. There Medros in time was healed, for the fire of life was hot within him, and his strength was of the ancient world, such as those who were nurtured in Valinor. His body recovered from his torment and became hale, but the shadow of his pain was in his heart, and he lived to wield his sword with left more deadly than his right hand had been. And that particular one hits me with a little bit of strength, because I am left-handed, particularly in writing. It's actually odd. When it comes to writing, I am left-handed. When it comes to almost everything else, badminton comes to mind. I haven't played cricket in a while, but cricket too, and a whole bunch of other, almost anything else, I am right-handed. Although I suspect the left-handed is the genetic hand, because even with regards to putting on muscle, I can tell you my left hand gets a pump and puts on muscle way quicker than my right. Minor tangent. But anyways, that's the end of that. My thoughts on the extract were, they became more relevant and more sincere and less small talk as I proceeded further into said thoughts, which I guess is to be expected. And the same goes for the extract, and it's something I've observed over these past few readings. When I start reading an excerpt, I'm usually a little bit just reading it, and as I read it, I'm able to emote, and I'm able to read it So I'm able to speak the extract. That's a better way of putting it. Anyways, that's the end of this one. Not as long as the previous one I recorded, but still quite long. That's the excerpt. I'll have the Silmarillion in the description. Thank you for listening, and fare thee well.